Hi, this is Joe Chambers. Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage. Today's clip came from an interview we did with Marty Stuart. In this clip, Marty talks about leaving Mississippi and what got him here to Nashville to be the superstar in country music that he has become. Hope you enjoy it. If you do, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. Once again, Country Music Hall of Fame inductee, Marty Stuart. Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame. Today's guest is Marty Stuart. Marty, thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure, Joe Chambers. I love it. This is my first time in the building.
Really?
And, you know, I go back to Murfreesboro, Tennessee days with you when you had a music store up there. And a Musicians Hall of Fame was just like a nugget of a dream that you talked about years ago. And I walked in, I went, Joe did it. I know you had a lot of help, but this is awesome. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks, man.
And thanks for doing it for all the musicians. That's the main thing.
Well, it was the labor of love. You know, we wanted to do it.
It's a life sentence, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the truth, man. I had no idea what I was stepping into, but like I told somebody, if I had to do it over again, I'd do it over again.
I know.
You know, so
it's great to have a mission in life.
Well, I thought I was done.
And well,
you know,
missions. My buddy Tom Allen, great illustrator, who did a lot of album covers in the 50s and 60s. But he said something that changed my life one day. He said, it's important to keep a project out in front of you that knows more about you than you know about it. And I'm sure that some mornings you think you know this place, but
oh yeah,
open the door and here's a whole nother deal, right?
Oh yeah, well, you know, a lot of people think that I know everything about every musician, and I've met so many people that know so much more than I do. You know, I learn something every day, seriously.
As it should be.
Yeah. But you said Murfreesboro. Didn't we? The first store I had was in Smyrna.
Was it Smyrna?
Yeah. Did you not used to live in
My
Smyrna?
mom and dad moved up here to Nashville in 1974 after I got a job with Lester Flatt, and they moved to Smyrna. And my mom still lives in the same house in Smyrna, so it could have very well been Smyrna.
Well, yeah, I was in Smyrna. Then we went to Murfreesboro, and then we went here and everywhere. But I was trying to think. We were just talking about when did we first meet, and do you know when we first met?
Not truthfully. Do you have it?
I was thinking it was Columbia. I thought it was CBS.
It could have been.
Because when did you leave Johnny?
1986.
Okay, then we met at Columbia Studios,
yeah, okay.
For real. Because I was working with Billy Sherrill there, and,
right.
And I remember, specifically remember you being there with Johnny, but I didn't know if you were still with him or just guesting on a recording session or something like that. But
I loved going to the art department at Columbia, Virginia team and Bill Johnson.
Yes.
I love, and working with him kind of gave me a license to hit the back door and walk through the building and get to know people and what they did and how the record company functioned or dysfunctioned or whatever. And, you know, from radio to publicity to, you know, whoever was sitting in the top chair on down. It was a great experience, and having him kind of as you know, the guy out front. But what immediately started happening when I went to work with him, I started taking pictures and they started getting used on his album covers. And so that gave me an even better insight into how it all worked. But it was my first peek into the inner workings of a major record label.
yeah, it was, to me, CBS at that time was like going to heaven to me, because it was like you walked in the front door, you could get a deal and walk out the back door with a completed, the art department, everything was in the same building.
Right.
You know.
Let me throw a name at you. Do you remember Ed Grizzard?
Sure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, history lesson. Ed Grizzard was the custodian.
Right.
At Columbia, who would come in late in the afternoon.
Right.
But Ed, in reality, ran Columbia Records, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And what you might know Ed from is that Johnny Cash had a record called Orange Blossom Special. And you remember the dialogue in the middle, and this guy says, "Say, man, when you going to New York?" John says, I don't know. I don't reckon I'll ever go to New York. And he says, well, ain't you worried about getting your nourishment in New York? And John says, well, I don't care if I do, I do. That was Ed.
No kidding. I
They
didn't
pulled
know
him
that.
in to do it. So we were doing a Billy Sherrill session
Right.
years later. That was about 1964. But in the early 80s, we were doing a Billy Sherrill session in Columbia Studio A.
Mm-hmm.
Ed comes walking in that afternoon. He says, what time are y'all finishing up tonight? I said, I don't know, 10 o'clock something. He says, I'm going to bring Brother Ray by. Everybody's going, sure, Ed. And we'll bring the president by. Ed said, I'm going to bring Brother Ray by. And, man, about 8 o'clock that night, the door popped open, and custodian Ed Grizzard walked in with Ray Charles and his entourage. And I took a bunch of pictures that have since been used a lot. But Ed brought Ray Charles in the building that night. And the session just kind of, melted, and it became about, just turn the mics on and let's see what happens.
No kidding.
But that was Ed.
I never knew that, man. I knew that Ray did an album at Columbia. I think he had a single, Love in Three-Quarter Time or something like that. But then Billy did a recording with him and Friends, Ray and Friends, and it had 7 Spanish Angels and all that. That was like 83 or something like that. But that was after he had left Columbia.
Well, this was just one of those, the door opened and look at there. And it was kind of magic for a couple hours and it was over.
Yeah, and Ray was cool as hell, wasn't he?
Oh, man. He was Brother Ray.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I got to hang out with him too, when Billy was producing the Ray and Friends album. It was great.
I think it's the Denver airport. They have, a moving sidewalk because that airport's so big. And one day I was sitting waiting on a plane, and I thought, look at there. And it was Ray with his overcoat draped over his shoulders, just looking cool. And I watched him from the minute I saw him till he came by and disappeared out of sight. I went, that was a vision. That was awesome.
You needed your camera there.
Needed my camera.
Yeah. Well, while we're on the camera, how's the book going? I mean, it's got to be incredibly successful, isn't it?
Well, I keep putting out picture books for coffee tables that have cool essays and stories, so I don't have to really stop and write a real book. But I love photography books. I love photography. I call my mother is still my favorite photographer, and there was always cameras around our house. Mama was one of those kind of people, Hilda Stewart, that could be frying chicken and see the kids doing something. It didn't matter what kind of camera, she'd go, and it was a instant classic from the heart, mama shot. And they were always kind of informal, but at the same time, the subject matter made them, actually formal. And I loved her photography. So when I came on the road, I brought the love of photography and the awareness of photography with me. But the first time I played in New York City in 1974, went to a bookstore in the Village, and there were some beautiful black and white jazz portraits taken by a bass player named Milt Hinton. And I got the feeling instantly that Milt had his bass in this hand and the camera in this hand. And he had total, unparalleled access to the family of jazz. There was the one I remember was Ella Fitzgerald shooting dice with the boys. But then there was scenes on the bus, scenes in the studio, scenes backstage, scenes on stage. And I thought, I can do this with country music now. And went outside of the bookstore and called my mom down in Mississippi and said, would you send me a camera? She sent me a Kodak Instamatic. And I proceeded to terrorize anybody that would stand still. But that's where it all started. And I'm not a great photographer. I think I have a pretty good eye. But the situations that I've had access to and the people I've had access to, that's what defines the photography sometimes to me.
Yeah, well, you definitely had those situations, and I think you're a great photographer myself. But
Take right now, if I had my camera,
it would break.
it would be the ultimate Joe Chambers portrait.
So,
COVID era portrait.
yes, this is so weird, isn't it? To be sitting like it's
For
weird.
once, musicians, I think musicians and people that run restaurants and bars, but musicians, we drew the winning card this time, didn't we? It's like we're out of work.
Yeah.
And I went out to the bus lot to get some things off the tour bus, I guess about last May, early May, and the entire bus lot was filled. And I said, it's probably this way at every bus lot in town. I thought, man, the circus has stopped. till further notice, and there's no wiggle room here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm praying for the lights to come back on. I'm looking for that back door.
I'm waiting for that vaccine. I mean, as soon as I get a call, I can get one. I'm there.
Oh, I'd bend over on NBC if it'd help.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is
anything to put some. And I do have a feeling that when we do finally get to do, the ultimate rule of playing a honky tonk, the first thing you look for is the back door. So I'm looking for the back door of this thing. But I believe when we do finally get around to getting to that through the back door, that people have been pent up for so long. And I know every band in this town and every other town ought to be fresh, ready to go. I hope they've written a bunch of good songs and rethought things. But the audience should be ready to hear some music.
I think that from the stage and from the audience that everybody's going to be more appreciative than they were of everything, because I can't imagine what it's going to be like to go to the first real concert at the Bridgestone again, or any little club around town for that fact, But I feel the same way. Everybody's biting at the bit, ready to go.
I didn't really miss it because I've enjoyed the rest, to be honest. As we were talking, this is the first real year I've had off since I was 12 years old. But I didn't really miss it. But last summer, somewhere along the way, I got in the car and the Grand Ole Opry was having a replay. And Mike Snyder was on there and doing one of his routines and playing great music. And he had the audience in stitches and in pieces. I mean, he was slaying it. And I heard the applause and the laughter, and it made me cry. So I thought, it's such a part of me, I loved it. And it really made me miss it.
Do you remember the last gig you played?
Superlatives and I were in Virginia, I think. And, this is back in March, and it's like it just started falling. It was like watching sand go through your hands,
right.
And we were booked all the way through 2020. And the first quarter was mostly out on the West Coast. Everything except for 3 venues were sold out. Things were clicking. We were just having a moment, coming up on a moment that we'd been working so hard to get to. And it was like watching the ship go by.
Yeah, same thing here.
Yeah.
We were expecting to have the best year we'd ever had. We were so looking forward to April and May. And like you said, that was a great way of putting it. The sand just kind of slipped through your fingers there. But so, Superlatives, I love that band, man, and I've loved it from every. A lot of times we have member changes, but it's worked out really well. It seems. I love the band you got right now, and
the Superlatives. We started in a. I'd done this. I'd toured from '72 to like '99, and did a record called The Pilgrim, and it bombed commercially, but it was the most right thing I'd ever done. But it was time. I got dropped from the label, lost my publishing deal, lost my manager. It was like start over, and so I let the swelling go down for a few months. And then I saw Kenny Vaughan on TV one night playing with Lucinda Williams, and I don't know who that guy is, but he reminds me of Luther Perkins that played with Johnny Cash, and he's an odd duck, and I love him. And I forgot to watch Lucinda, and watch Kenny the whole time. Ran into him a few weeks later. What are you doing? Nothing. I said, let's talk about it. So we got together, and I'd been playing a little bit at the Grand Ole Opry with Harry Stinson and Richard Bennett. We were just going out having fun on the weekends. And Harry and I had worked together a lot on a lot of records. And so when Kenny and I broke camp that day, I said, I'll find us a drummer, you find us a bass player. And so I talked to Harry, and Harry was, maybe, but I said, come on, let's play. And Kenny found a bass player named Brian Glenn. And from the first rehearsal at this little church rehearsal studio in Charlotte, I knew that there was something different about the band. It wasn't about chasing 3-minute hits up and down Music Row anymore. It was way beyond that. And it didn't take me long to understand that we were cultural mercenaries or missionaries or whatever. And we kind of had a summit, and the result was, if we believe in it, we'll pay to get there. If we don't believe in it, you ain't got enough money to get us. And we treat the outhouse and the White House the same, and from the small town newspaper, New York Times, all the same. 1,000-watt radio station, 50-watt, 1,000-watt radio station, or beyond. It's all the same. It's like we have something to do. And I thought, well, we took one more run at commercial radio, and it was like nothing. And I thought, all right, we'll take our case to the people. So we went into the back roads of America to develop the band, develop the sound. And I said, when we play ourselves out back to the lights, we'll have stories to tell, and we'll represent people that need talked about. And it just happened to be that they were some of the greatest musicians in the world and the most versatile people, statesman-like characters. All of us have been there and done that. So Brian lasted a while, then Apostle Paul Martin came in, and we knew the day we hired him that he wouldn't last too long because he had a house full of kids. And in the kids' rooms when they were little, they had bunk beds out of Hemp Hill bus and a Marshall amp by the bed, and they were incredible. So Paul lasted a long time, and now Chris Scruggs, and so still Kenny and Harry and Chris Scruggs, and it's been an incredible band to be a part of. I'm so proud of it.